She was only 7 years old, too young to understand why life was so cruel. But when her sick mother needed money for hospital bills, she picked up a crate of handmade crafts and walked into the wealthiest neighborhood in Polanco, Mexico City. What she found in one mansion would change everything. A photograph, a secret, and a love story that was never supposed to end. Sit back and find out as we dive into the story of how a little girl's courage reunited two hearts that were torn apart by lies. In a small hospital room in the heart of Tepito, a little girl sat quietly beside her mother's bed. Her name was Amara, and she was only 7 years old. Her mother, Keisha, lay still under a thin white sheet. Her face was pale, covered in sweat, and her breathing was slow and heavy. Amara held her mother's hand tightly, even though it felt cold and lifeless. The room smelled of medicine and sadness. The walls were painted a dull green, and the ceiling fan above them barely moved. Amara didn't cry. She had learned not to cry a long time ago. Crying didn't change anything. It didn't bring food. It didn't pay bills. It didn't make her mother better. Amara looked at her mother's face and whispered, "Mommy, please wake up. I'm here." But her mother didn't move. Her eyes stayed closed. Her lips stayed silent. Just then, the door opened. A tall man wearing a white coat walked in. It was Dr. Hernandez, the hospital doctor. He held a brown file in his hand and looked tired. He stopped at the foot of the bed and looked at Amara with eyes that said he had bad news. "Good afternoon, young lady," he said gently. Amara stood up quickly and answered, "Good afternoon, sir." Dr. Hernandez opened the file and flipped through some papers. Then he sighed. "Your mother's condition is stable for now, but she needs more treatment. We've given her some drugs to bring down the fever, but we need to run more tests." Amara nodded. "Okay, sir." The doctor paused, then said the words she feared the most. "But there's a problem. The hospital bill is now 25,000 pesos. If we don't receive payment by tomorrow morning, I'm sorry, but we'll have to stop the treatment." Amara's heart sank. 25,000 pesos. She didn't have that kind of money. She didn't even have 2,500 pesos. "Sir, please," she said, her voice shaking. "Please don't stop treating my mommy. I will find the money, I promise." Dr. Hernandez looked at her with pity. He had seen too many cases like this. Poor families, sick patients, no money. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "but this is a hospital, not a charity. We have our rules." Amara swallowed hard. "I understand, sir, but please just give me until tomorrow. I will bring the money." The doctor stared at her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp. If the money is not here, we'll have to discharge her." "Thank you, sir," Amara said, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Hernandez walked out of the room, leaving Amara alone with her unconscious mother. She sat back down on the edge of the bed and looked at her mother's face. Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away. She leaned forward and kissed her mother's forehead gently. "Don't worry, Mommy," she whispered. "I will get the money. I promise." She stood up, adjusted her faded pink dress, and walked out of the hospital room with a heavy heart, but a strong will. Amara knew exactly what she had to do. The small apartment where Amara and her mother lived was not far from the hospital. It was just one room with a tiny kitchen in the corner and a bathroom that barely worked. The paint on the walls was peeling off and the ceiling had brown stains from old rainwater. But it was home. Amara pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was quiet. Too quiet. She missed hearing her mother's voice, her mother's laughter, her mother's songs while cooking. She walked to the corner where her mother kept the handmade crafts. There were about 20 items in a large woven basket: bracelets, small wooden figurines, embroidered pouches, things her mother made to sell every evening by the roadside to make money for food and rent. But now her mother was too sick to sell anything. Amara bent down, grabbed the basket, and tried to lift it. It was too heavy. She pulled again, this time with all her strength. The basket moved a little. She dragged it toward the door, one pull at a time. Her arms hurt, her back hurt, but she didn't stop. When she finally got the basket outside, she balanced it on her head the way she had seen her mother do many times. It was so heavy that her neck bent slightly to the side, but she steadied herself and started walking. Amara didn't go to the poor neighborhoods. She knew the people there had no money. Instead, she walked toward the rich part of town, Polanco, where the big houses and luxury cars were. It was far, but she didn't care. She had to save her mother. As she walked under the hot afternoon sun, people stared at her. Some shook their heads, some whispered, but no one helped her carry the load. No one asked if she was okay. Amara kept walking. After almost an hour and a half, she finally reached Polanco. The streets were cleaner here. The houses were bigger. The gates were taller. Everything looked different. Amara stopped in front of the first house she saw. It had a tall iron gate with security cameras on top. She knocked on the gate. A security guard opened a small window and looked down at her. "¿Qué quieres?" he asked rudely. "Good afternoon, sir," Amara said in Spanish. "I'm selling crafts, beautiful handmade crafts. Do you want to buy?" The guard laughed. "Are you crazy? Do we look like people who buy crafts from the street? Go away before I call the police." He slammed the window shut. Amara's heart hurt, but she moved to the next house. At the second house, a woman opened the gate herself. She looked at Amara with disgust. "Why is a dirty little girl knocking on my gate? Go away. We don't want anything from you." She didn't even let Amara speak before she shut the gate in her face. Amara moved to the third house. This time, a young man opened the gate. He looked at her and smiled a little. "What are you selling, pequeña?" he asked. "Crafts, sir. Handmade bracelets and figures. Only 100 pesos each." The man looked at the basket on her head and felt a little pity. He brought out his wallet and gave her 500 pesos. "Take this. Keep your crafts. Use the money to buy something to eat." Amara's eyes lit up. "Thank you, sir. God bless you." The man nodded and closed the gate. Amara continued walking, knocking on more gates. Some people bought from her. Some gave her money without taking the crafts. Some insulted her and told her to leave. By evening, Amara had sold about half of the items. She counted the money in her small cloth pouch. 10,000 pesos. It was a lot, but it was still not enough. She needed 25,000 pesos. She looked at the remaining crafts in her basket and sighed. Then she saw it. At the end of the street, standing tall and proud, was the biggest mansion she had ever seen. It had white stone walls, a golden gate, and a long driveway lined with perfectly trimmed hedges and flowers. The house looked like something from a telenovela. Amara took a deep breath. "This is my last chance," she whispered to herself. She walked toward the mansion, her legs tired, her shoulders aching, but her hope still strong. When she reached the golden gate, she knocked gently. A security guard in a black uniform opened it and frowned at her. "¿Qué quieres?" he asked sharply. "Please, sir, I'm selling crafts. Can I speak to the owner of the house?" "Are you crazy?" the guard shouted. "Do you know who lives here? This is the house of Señor Diego Castellanos, one of the richest men in Mexico City. He doesn't have time for street sellers like you. Go away." Amara didn't move. "Please, sir, just let me try. My mother is sick. I need money for her hospital bill." The second guard, a younger man, walked over. "Roberto, leave this small girl alone. She's just a child." "Let's throw her out." They grabbed Amara by the arm and started pulling her away from the gate. Amara struggled. "Please, sir. Please, just let me see him, please." Inside the mansion, Diego Castellanos sat in his large study room. He was 36 years old, tall and handsome with dark hair, sharp brown eyes, and a serious face. He wore a crisp white linen shirt even though he was at home. On his desk were piles of documents, contracts, and business files. He was on the phone arguing with someone. "No me importa lo que diga la junta. If they don't agree to my terms, I'll pull out of the deal completely." As he spoke, he glanced out of the window that overlooked the front gate. That's when he saw it. Two security guards were pulling a small girl away from the gate. The girl was crying, begging, holding a basket on her head. Diego's heart tightened. He didn't know why, but something about the scene bothered him. He ended the call abruptly. "I'll call you back." He stood up, walked out of the study, and went straight to the front door. His housekeeper, Senora Rosa, saw him and asked, "Senor, where are you going?" "Outside," he said without stopping. He opened the door and walked down the long driveway toward the gate. The guards saw him coming and immediately let go of the girl. They stood at attention. "What's going on here?" Diego asked, his voice calm but firm. "Senor, this small girl came to bother us," the first guard said quickly. "We were just sending her away." Diego looked at Amara. She was small, thin, and her dress was faded and dusty. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying anymore. She stood there holding the basket tightly, staring at him with a mix of fear and hope. "Let her in," Diego said. The guards looked shocked. "Senor?" I said, "Let her in." "Yes, senor." They opened the gate immediately. Amara stepped inside slowly, her heart pounding. She had never been inside such a big compound before. The driveway was smooth and perfectly paved. The flowers were bright and beautiful. Everything looked so clean, so perfect. Diego walked closer to her and stopped a few feet away. "What's your name?" he asked gently in Spanish. "Amara, sir," she answered, her voice quiet. "Amara," he repeated, "what are you doing here?" Amara looked down at the ground. "I'm selling crafts, sir. My mother is sick in the hospital. The doctor said if I don't pay 25,000 pesos by tomorrow morning, they will stop treating her." Diego's chest tightened again. He looked at the basket on her head. "How old are you, Amara?" 7 years old, sir." 7 years old, Diego whispered. "And you're out here selling crafts alone?" "Yes, sir. I have no one else. My father is dead. It's just me and my mommy." Diego felt something break inside him. He had seen many people beg for money before, but this was different. This was a child who should be playing, not carrying heavy loads and knocking on strangers' gates. "How much have you made so far?" he asked. Amara reached into her small pouch and brought out the crumpled notes. 10,000 pesos, sir." Diego nodded. "And how much do you still need?" 15,000 pesos, sir." Diego looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "Wait here, I'll help you." Amara's eyes widened. "Really, sir?" "Yes. But first, let me take you inside. You look tired." Amara hesitated. "Sir, I don't want to trouble you." "It's no trouble," Diego said with a small smile. "Come." He led her up the driveway, past the marble fountain, and into the mansion. Amara's mouth fell open. The inside of the house was even more beautiful than the outside. The floors were made of shiny marble. The walls had large paintings. The ceiling was high with a crystal chandelier hanging in the center. "Wait here," Diego said, pointing to a chair in the large sitting room. "I'll go get my wallet." Amara sat down carefully, afraid to touch anything. She placed the basket of crafts on the floor beside her. Diego walked toward his study room, which was just down the hallway. As Amara waited, she looked around. Everything was so beautiful, so clean, so expensive. Then her eyes landed on something that made her heart stop. The door to the study room was slightly open. Through the crack, she could see inside. And there, on the wall behind the desk, was a large framed photograph. Amara squinted and leaned forward a little. Her breath caught in her throat. She stood up slowly and walked closer to the door. She looked through the crack again, this time more carefully. The photograph was of a young woman. She had beautiful dark skin, long black braids, a bright smile, and kind eyes. She was wearing a yellow sundress and standing in front of a beach with palm trees. Amara's hands began to shake. Her heart began to pound. She knew that face. She had seen that face every single day of her life. It was her mother. Amara pushed the door open a little more and stepped inside the study room. She walked closer to the photograph, her eyes wide, her mouth open. She stood there, frozen, staring at the picture. "That's my mommy," she whispered. Diego was at his desk, opening a drawer to get his wallet. He heard her voice and turned around. He saw her standing in front of the photograph, staring at it like she had seen a ghost. "Amara," he said, confused. "What are you doing?" Amara turned to look at him, her eyes filled with tears. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling, "why is my mommy's picture in your house?" Diego froze. The room went silent. He stared at her, his mind spinning. "What did you say?" "That picture," Amara said, pointing at the wall. "That's my mommy. Why do you have her picture?" Diego's face went pale. He walked toward the photograph slowly, then looked back at Amara. "Your mother?" he whispered. "Yes, sir. Her name is Keisha. That's my mommy." Diego felt the ground shift under his feet. His heart started pounding so hard he thought it would burst. He looked at the picture, then at Amara, then at the picture again. "Keisha," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Your mother's name is Keisha?" "Yes, sir." Diego's eyes filled with tears. He covered his mouth with his hand and turned away. His whole body was shaking. Amara didn't understand what was happening. She just stood there, confused and scared. Then, from behind them, a sharp voice cut through the silence. "What is going on here?" Amara and Diego both turned around. Standing in the doorway was an old woman. She was tall, elegant, and dressed in expensive clothes. Her face was hard, her eyes cold. It was Señora Magdalena Castellanos, Diego's mother. She looked at Amara with disgust. "Who is this dirty child? And why is she in my son's study?" Diego wiped his eyes quickly. "Madre, this is—" "I don't care who she is," Señora Magdalena snapped. "Get her out of here now." Amara took a step back, frightened. Diego tried to speak again. "Madre, please, just listen." "No," Señora Magdalena said firmly. She walked toward Amara and pointed at the door. "You, get out now." "But, Señora," Amara started. "I said get out," Señora Magdalena shouted. She grabbed Amara by the arm and pulled her toward the door. "Madre, stop," Diego said, his voice rising. But his mother didn't listen. "This girl is a scammer," Señora Magdalena said coldly. "She saw the picture and now she's trying to manipulate you. She's lying. She's using your pain to get money from you." "No, Señora, I'm not lying," Amara cried. "That's really my mommy." "Shut up," Señora Magdalena hissed. She dragged Amara out of the study, through the sitting room and out the front door. She pushed her down the driveway and shouted at the guards. "Throw this girl out and make sure she never comes back." The guards opened the gate and pushed Amara outside. She fell to the ground, scraping her knee. The basket of crafts fell beside her. The gate slammed shut. Amara sat on the ground crying. Her knee was bleeding. Her heart was breaking. She didn't understand what had just happened. She didn't understand why that woman was so angry. But she had to go. She had to get back to her mother. She picked up the basket, wiped her tears, and started walking back to the hospital. By the time Amara reached the hospital, it was already evening. Her legs were tired. Her arms were sore. Her knee was still bleeding. But she didn't care. She had the money. She went straight to the reception desk and handed the 10,000 pesos to the nurse. "Please, Señora, this is for my mother's bill. Her name is Keisha." The nurse counted the money and shook her head. "This is not enough. The bill is 25,000 pesos. "I know, Señora," Amara said, "but please just take this for now. I'll bring the rest tomorrow. I promise." The nurse sighed. "Okay, but if you don't bring the remaining 15,000 pesos by tomorrow morning, we will stop the treatment." "Yes, Señora. Thank you, Señora." Amara ran to her mother's room. When she opened the door, she saw her mother awake. Keisha was sitting up in bed, weak but conscious. Her eyes lit up when she saw Amara. "Amara," she said softly, Where have you been, baby? I was so worried. Amara ran to her mother and hugged her tightly. Mommy, you're awake! Keisha stroked her daughter's hair. Yes, baby, I'm awake. But where did you go? It's already night. Amara pulled away and looked at her mother. Mommy, I went to sell the crafts. I needed money for your hospital bill. Keisha's eyes filled with tears. Amara, you didn't have to do that. You're just a child. But Mommy, the doctor said if we don't pay, they'll stop treating you. I had to do it. Keisha held her daughter's face in her hands. My strong girl, I'm so proud of you. She paused and looked at Amara's torn dress and bleeding knee. But what happened to you? Why are you hurt? Amara sat on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. Mommy, something strange happened today. What happened? Keisha asked, her voice full of concern. Amara began to tell her story slowly. I was selling crafts in Polanco. Some people bought from me. Some people chased me away. But then I reached this very big house, Mommy. The biggest house I've ever seen. It had white walls and a golden gate. Keisha listened quietly, her heart starting to beat faster. The guards at the gate didn't want to let me in, Amara continued. They were pushing me away. But then a man came out of the house. He told them to let me in. Keisha's hands began to tremble. What man? She whispered. A tall man, Mommy. He was wearing a white shirt. He had kind eyes. He asked me my name and why I was selling crafts. I told him about you, about how you're sick. He said he would help me. Keisha's eyes widened. Then what happened? He took me inside the mansion, Amara said. Mommy, the house was so beautiful, like the ones we see on TV. He told me to wait in the sitting room while he went to get his wallet. Keisha's breathing became faster. And then? Amara looked at her mother with innocent eyes. Mommy, I saw something through the door of his study room. There was a big picture on the wall. And Mommy, her voice dropped to a whisper, it was your picture. Keisha gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Yes, Mommy, Amara said. It was you. You were wearing a yellow dress and standing near the beach. You looked younger, but it was definitely you. I asked him why he had your picture. Keisha's whole body started shaking. Tears rolled down her cheeks. What did he say? He didn't say anything, Mommy. He just stared at me like he saw a ghost. He started crying. But then an old woman came. She was very angry. She shouted at me and called me a liar. She said I was trying to trick them. Then she dragged me out of the house and told the guards to throw me out. Keisha covered her face with both hands and began to sob. Oh God, no! Mommy, what's wrong? Amara asked, frightened by her mother's reaction. Why are you crying? Keisha tried to compose herself, but her hands were still shaking. She looked at Amara with eyes full of pain and fear. Amara, listen to me very carefully. We need to leave this hospital tonight. What? But Mommy, you're still sick. The doctor said— I don't care what the doctor said, Keisha said urgently. We need to leave. We need to leave Mexico City. We need to go far away where they can't find us. Mommy, you're scaring me, Amara said, her voice trembling. Who can't find us? Keisha took her daughter's hands and held them tightly. Amara, that man you saw today, that man in the mansion, do you remember his face? Amara nodded. Yes, Mommy. Amara, Keisha said, her voice breaking. That man is your father. Amara's eyes went wide. For a moment, she couldn't speak. She just stared at her mother, unable to process what she had just heard. What? She finally whispered. His name is Diego, Keisha said, tears streaming down her face. Diego Castellanos. He's your father. But Mommy, Amara said, confusion written all over her face. You told me my father was dead. You said he died before I was born. Keisha shook her head, crying harder now. I lied, Amara. I had to lie. I had to protect you. Protect me from what? Amara asked, her voice rising. Mommy, I don't understand. If he's my father, why did we run away? Why have we been living in poverty? Why didn't you tell me?" Keisha pulled Amara closer and hugged her tightly. "Because, baby, his mother wanted to kill you." Amara pulled back sharply. "What?" Keisha wiped her tears and took a deep breath. She knew it was time to tell her daughter the truth. The whole truth. "Amara, sit down. I need to tell you a story. A story about how I met your father, about how much we loved each other, and about why we can never go back." Amara sat on the bed, her heart pounding, her mind racing. Keisha began to speak. 8 years ago, I was 25 years old. I had just moved to Mexico City from Atlanta. I was working as a maid at a luxury resort in Cancun during the summers and doing cleaning jobs in the city during the rest of the year. The resort was very big and fancy. Rich people came there all the time from all over the world. I was happy with my job. I was saving money to bring my younger brother to Mexico to study. Keisha paused, a small smile appearing on her face despite her tears. One summer, a young man came to the resort. He was tall, handsome, and different. Most rich people who came to the resort were rude. They treated us like we were invisible, but not him. He smiled at me. He asked me how my day was going in English. He treated me like I mattered. "That was Papi?" Amara asked softly. Keisha nodded. "Yes, that was Diego, your father. He started coming to the resort more often. Every time he came, he would find me and talk to me. He would ask about my dreams, my family, my life back in the States. I told him I had no parents, that I was raised by my grandmother who had passed away, that I was working to survive and to help my brother." Keisha's eyes became distant, as if she was seeing the past. He didn't look at me with pity like others did. He looked at me with respect, with kindness. We became friends. Then we started meeting outside the resort. We would go to the beach, to small restaurants in the city, to parks. He showed me a Mexico I had never seen before. The real Mexico, not just the tourist places. Then one day, Keisha continued, her voice soft, he told me he loved me. He said, "Keisha, I don't care that you're from another country. I don't care that you have no money. I love you for who you are. You are the most genuine person I have ever met." And I loved him too, Amara. I loved him so much. Amara listened, tears forming in her own eyes. She had never heard her mother talk like this before. "We were together for almost a year," Keisha said, "the happiest year of my life. Then one day, I started feeling sick. I went to the hospital and the doctor told me I was pregnant. I was scared, Amara, so scared. But when I told Diego, he was so happy. He lifted me up and spun me around. He said, 'Keisha, this is the best news I've ever heard. We're going to be a family.'" Keisha's face darkened. "But then he said he wanted me to meet his mother. He wanted to tell her about the pregnancy and about our plan to get married. I was so nervous. I knew his mother was a very powerful woman. She came from an old Mexican family with a lot of land and money. But Diego kept saying, 'Don't worry. She will love you just like I love you.' But she didn't love me," Keisha said, her voice turning bitter. "The day Diego took me to meet her, she looked at me like I was dirt. She asked me where I was from. I told her Atlanta. She asked me what my parents did. I said they were dead, and I was raised by my grandmother who worked in a factory. She asked me if I went to university. I said I only graduated high school." Keisha's hands clenched into fists. "Then she laughed. She laughed at me, Amara. She said in Spanish so Diego would understand, but making sure I heard every word. 'So you expect me to let a black American nobody, a poor woman with no education and no family legacy, become my daughter-in-law and carry my grandchild? You must be joking.' Diego tried to defend me. He said, 'Madre, I love her. I'm going to marry her whether you like it or not.'" "What did she say?" Amara asked. "She smiled," Keisha said, a cold, evil smile. She said, "Okay, Diego, if that's what you want, go ahead. Marry her. I won't stop you." Diego was so happy. He thought she had accepted me, but I saw something in her eyes. Something dark, Something dangerous. I knew she was lying. Keisha's voice dropped to almost a whisper. That night I was sleeping in the small apartment I rented in Tepito. It was around midnight. I heard a knock on my door. When I opened it, Senora Magdalena was standing there. She was alone. No driver, no bodyguard, just her. Amara's eyes widened. What did she do? She walked into my apartment without permission, Keisha said. She looked around at my poor furniture, my small bed, my old things. Then she looked at me and said in perfect English, "Let me make something very clear to you. You will never marry my son. You will never be part of my family. You are nothing but a gold digger who got pregnant to trap him." Keisha's voice shook. I told her I loved Diego. I told her I wasn't with him for his money. But she didn't care. She came closer to me and said in a voice so cold it made my blood freeze, "If you don't leave my son, I will kill that baby inside you. And if you think I'm joking, try me. I have the money and the power to make you disappear. No one will even know you existed. You're a foreigner here. You have no rights. No one will protect you." Amara covered her mouth in shock. She said that? Keisha nodded, tears flowing freely now. Yes. And I knew she meant it. I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't bluffing. So that night, after she left, I packed everything I owned into 2 bags. I took the little money I had saved and I ran. I called my brother in Atlanta and told him I couldn't help him anymore. I left Cancun, left my job, and I hid here in Tepito. I didn't tell Diego. I didn't tell anyone. I just disappeared. But why didn't you tell Papi? Amara asked. Maybe he could have protected us. Keisha shook her head. Amara, you don't understand. Back then, Diego was still young. He was only 28 years old. Yes, he had money from his business, but most of his family wealth was still controlled by his mother. She had the power, the connections, the influence in this country. If I had told him, he would have tried to fight her, and she would have destroyed him too. Or worse, she would have killed you before you were even born. I couldn't risk that. Keisha looked at her daughter with eyes full of pain. I chose you, Amara. I chose your life over my love. I spent my entire pregnancy hiding in that small apartment. I had you in a clinic here in Tepito. No friends, no family, just me and you. And when you were born, I looked at your tiny face and I knew I had made the right choice. Amara's tears fell silently. She didn't know what to say. We've been living here ever since, Keisha continued. I worked hard cleaning houses, doing laundry, selling crafts, anything to make sure we had food and shelter. And I told you your father was dead because I thought it would be easier than explaining the truth. Keisha held Amara's face in her hands. But now they know. Now they've seen you. That woman will not stop, Amara. She will find us. And she will do whatever it takes to make sure we disappear again. That's why we need to leave tonight. Before Amara could respond, they heard footsteps in the hallway outside the room. Multiple footsteps, coming closer. Keisha's face went pale. Oh no, she whispered. The door to the hospital room opened, and there, standing in the doorway, was Diego. His eyes were red and swollen. His white shirt was wrinkled. His hair was messy. He looked like he had been crying for hours. Behind him stood Dr. Hernandez and 2 nurses. Keisha, Diego said, his voice breaking. It's really you. Keisha tried to get out of bed, panic written all over her face. Diego, please. You need to leave. You need to go. Leave? Diego said, stepping into the room. Keisha, I've been searching for you for 8 years. 8 years. Do you know what that did to me? Do you know how many nights I stayed awake wondering if you were alive or dead? Diego, please, Keisha started, but Diego raised his hand. No, he said firmly. No more running, no more hiding. I need to understand. Why did you leave me? Why did you take my daughter away from me? Amara looked between her mother and father, her heart breaking at the pain in both their faces. Keisha's voice was barely a whisper. Your mother threatened to kill our baby. Diego froze. The room went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. What? He finally said. Your mother came to my apartment the night after we met her, Keisha said, tears streaming down her face. She told me if I didn't leave you, she would kill our baby. She said she had the power and the money to make us disappear, and I believed her, Diego. I knew she was capable of it. Diego's face went from shock to rage. His hands clenched into fists. His jaw tightened. My mother did what? I'm sorry, Keisha sobbed. I'm so sorry, but I had to protect Amara. I had to choose her life over us. Diego's legs seemed to give out. He stumbled backward and leaned against the wall. He covered his face with his hands and let out a sound that was somewhere between a cry and a scream. It was the sound of a man whose heart had just been shattered into a million pieces. Dr. Hernandez, who had been standing quietly by the door, cleared his throat. Senor, perhaps we should give them some privacy. No, Diego said, wiping his face roughly. No, I need to be here. He walked toward Keisha's bed, his steps slow and deliberate. When he reached her, he knelt down beside the bed and took her hand. Keisha, he said, his voice hoarse from crying. I was young and stupid back then. I was still dependent on my mother. But not anymore. I have my own companies now, my own money, my own power. And I swear to you, on everything I own, I will never let her hurt you or Amara ever again. Keisha shook her head, still crying. Diego, you don't understand. Your mother is powerful. She has connections everywhere. I don't care, Diego said, his voice growing stronger. I don't care how powerful she is. I'm not losing you again. I'm not losing my daughter again. I lost 8 years with Amara. 8 years I can never get back. Birthdays I missed. First words I didn't hear. First steps I didn't see. First day of school. I will not lose one more day. He stood up and looked at Dr. Hernandez. Doctor, what's the total hospital bill? Senor, it's 25,000 pesos, the doctor replied. I'm paying it, all of it right now, and I want the best treatment for her, the best doctors, the best medicine, whatever it takes. Diego, you don't have to, Keisha started. Yes, I do, Diego said. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Hola, this is Diego Castellanos. I'm at Hospital General de Tepito. I need you to transfer 100,000 pesos to the hospital's account right now. Yes, right now. Thank you. He ended the call and looked at the doctor. The money will be in your account in the next 5 minutes. I'm also covering any additional costs for the next month. I want her to get the best care possible. Dr. Hernandez nodded, clearly impressed. Yes, senor. Thank you, senor. We'll make sure she gets excellent treatment. My amazing people, tell us where you're watching from. Mexico City, Monterrey, Guadalajara, LA, Chicago, New York, Miami, Houston. Drop your location below. Don't forget to like the video, and please subscribe. I promised my mom I'd hit 1,000 subscribers this month. Stay with us for more powerful moments. Diego turned back to Keisha and Amara. And when you're better, both of you are coming with me. I have an apartment ready. A safe place where my mother can't find you. Diego, I don't know if that's a good idea, Keisha said weakly. She will have to go through me first, Diego said firmly. And I promise you, Keisha, this time I'm ready for her. This time I won't let her win. Amara, who had been quiet this whole time, suddenly spoke up. Papi? Diego turned to look at his daughter. Hearing her call him Papi for the first time made fresh tears spring to his eyes. Yes, Amara? Are you really my Papi? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. Diego knelt down so he was at her eye level. Yes, Amara. I'm your Papi, and I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you all these years. I'm so sorry you had to carry that basket on your head. I'm so sorry you had to suffer. But from today, that changes. From today, I will take care of you and your mummy. I promise. Amara looked at him for a long moment, studying his face. Then slowly, she reached out and touched his cheek. You look like me, she said softly. Diego laughed through his tears. Yes, I do. You have my eyes and my smile. You're my daughter, my beautiful daughter. Amara wrapped her small arms around his neck and hugged him tightly. Diego held her close, and for the first time in 8 years, he felt complete. He felt like the missing piece of his heart had finally been found. Dr. Hernandez cleared his throat again. Senor, Senora, I'll give you some privacy now. If you need anything, please let the nurses know. He and the nurses quietly left the room. Diego stood up, still holding Amara. He sat on the edge of Keisha's bed with Amara on his lap. The three of them sat together in silence for a moment, each processing everything that had just happened. "I can't believe this is real," Keisha whispered. "After all these years." "It's real," Diego said, reaching out to hold her hand. "I found you, and I'm never letting you go again." "But your mother," Keisha started again. "Keisha, listen to me," Diego said, looking into her eyes. "I know you're scared. I know you have every reason to be. But I need you to trust me. Things are different now. I'm different now. I'm not the young man who was afraid to stand up to his mother. I'm ready to fight for us, for our family." Keisha looked at him, wanting to believe him, but fear still clouded her eyes. "She's dangerous, Diego. You don't know what she's capable of." "Then it's time I find out," Diego said, "because I'm done living in fear. I'm done letting her control my life, and I'm done letting her keep me away from the people I love." Amara looked up at her father. "Are we going to be a family now? Like other families?" Diego smiled and kissed her forehead. "Yes, mi amor. We're going to be a family. A real family." That night, after Diego left to make arrangements, Keisha lay in her hospital bed unable to sleep. Her mind was racing. Part of her was happy. Diego had found them. He still loved her. He wanted to be a father to Amara. But another part of her was terrified. She knew Senora Magdalena would not let this happen easily. Meanwhile, across town in the Castellanos mansion, Senora Magdalena sat in her large bedroom, also unable to sleep. She had noticed something was wrong with Diego. He had come home late, his eyes red, his face tense. When she asked him what was wrong, he simply said, "Nothing, madre," and went straight to his room. But Senora Magdalena was not stupid. She had seen the way Diego looked at that little girl earlier. She had seen the shock on his face when the girl mentioned her mother's name, and she knew what that meant. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. "Hola, jefe." "Yes, it's Magdalena. I need you to do something for me. Find out everything you can about a black American woman named Keisha. She used to work at the resort in Cancun about 8 years ago." "Yes, that's right. I want to know where she is, who she's with, everything. Money is not a problem. Just get me the information. Tomorrow." The next morning, Diego arrived at the hospital early. He brought food, fresh clothes for both Keisha and Amara, and even toys and books for Amara. He had also arranged for a private room so Keisha could recover in comfort. "Good morning," he said cheerfully as he entered the room. "I brought breakfast." Amara jumped up excitedly. "Papi, you came back." "Of course I came back," Diego said, lifting her up and spinning her around. "I told you I'm not going anywhere." Keisha smiled weakly from the bed. She looked better than yesterday, but still tired. "Diego, you didn't have to bring all this." "Yes, I did," Diego said. He set Amara down and started unpacking the food. "I brought chilaquiles, fresh fruit, pan dulce, and orange juice. You both need to eat well." As they ate together, Diego told them about his plans. "I have an apartment in Roma Norte. It's quiet, secure, and comfortable. When you're discharged, you and Amara will move there." "Diego, I can't let you do all this," Keisha protested. "We can manage on our own." "Keisha, please," Diego said, taking her hand. "Let me do this. Let me take care of my family. I've missed 8 years. Don't take this away from me, too." Keisha looked at him and saw the sincerity in his eyes. She nodded slowly. "Okay." Over the next week, Diego visited the hospital every single day. He brought food, books for Amara, flowers for Keisha, and most importantly, his presence. Amara began to open up to him. She told him about school, about her friends, about how her mother sold crafts every day and sometimes cleaned houses. Each story broke Diego's heart a little more. His daughter had suffered so much. His Keisha had struggled so much. And it was all because of his mother. On the 7th day, Dr. Hernandez came to check on Keisha. "Good news," he said with a smile. "You're recovering well. If everything continues like this, you can be discharged in 3 days." Diego smiled. "That's wonderful news." But that afternoon, everything changed. Diego received a phone call from his assistant. "Senor, your mother wants to see you urgently. She said it's important." Diego's jaw tightened. He knew this was coming. "Tell her I'll be there in an hour." He turned to Keisha, who had heard the conversation. Fear was written all over her face. "She knows," Keisha whispered. "She knows you found us." "It doesn't matter," Diego said firmly. "Let her know. I'm ready for her." When Diego arrived at the mansion, Señora Magdalena was waiting for him in the sitting room. She was dressed immaculately as always, sitting on her favorite chair with a cup of coffee in her hand. "Sit down, Diego," she said coldly. Diego remained standing. "What do you want, Madre?" Señora Magdalena smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I know about the girl and her mother. That poor woman, Keisha, or whatever her name is." "Her name is Keisha," Diego said through clenched teeth. "And that girl is Amara, your granddaughter." Señora Magdalena's smile vanished. "She is not my granddaughter. That woman trapped you 8 years ago, and now she's back to finish what she started. Can't you see she's using that child to manipulate you?" "Manipulate me?" Diego's voice rose. "Madre, I found them by accident. Amara came to this house selling crafts because her mother was dying in a hospital. She didn't even know who I was. She had no idea I was her father." "A clever act," Señora Magdalena said dismissively. "That woman trained her well." "No," Diego said, his voice shaking with anger. "What's clever is how you threatened to kill an innocent baby 8 years ago. How you drove away the woman I loved. How you destroyed my chance at happiness." Señora Magdalena stood up sharply. "I did what any mother would do. I protected you from a gold digger, from someone who wanted to trap you with a pregnancy." "She didn't trap me," Diego shouted. "I loved her. I still love her. And that child is mine. My daughter, whether you accept it or not." "Then you're a fool," Señora Magdalena said coldly. "Just like your father was before he learned his lesson." "Don't you dare bring my father into this," Diego warned. Señora Magdalena walked closer to him. "Listen to me very carefully, Diego. If you continue this foolishness with that woman and her child, I will cut you off completely. No more access to the family properties, no more connections, nothing." Diego laughed bitterly. "Do you really think I care about that, Madre? I built my own companies. I have my own money. Your threats don't scare me anymore." Señora Magdalena's eyes narrowed. "Is that so? Then perhaps I should go directly to them. Have a little conversation with Keisha and her daughter." Diego grabbed his mother's arm, something he had never done before. "If you go anywhere near them, if you even breathe in their direction, I will make sure you regret it. I'm not the weak boy I was 8 years ago. Touch my family and you'll see what I'm capable of." Señora Magdalena looked at her son with shock. She had never seen him like this. So angry, so determined, so strong. Diego released her arm and stepped back. "I came here today to tell you something. Keisha and Amara are moving into my apartment in Roma Norte. They are my family now. And if you can't accept that, then you and I have nothing more to say to each other." "You would choose them over your own mother?" Señora Magdalena asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You made that choice 8 years ago when you threatened to kill my child," Diego said quietly. "I'm just living with the consequences." He turned and walked toward the door. "Diego," Señora Magdalena called out, "if you walk out that door, don't come back." Diego stopped, but didn't turn around. "Goodbye, Madre." He walked out of the mansion, got into his car, and drove away. As he drove, tears rolled down his cheeks. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. For the first time in 8 years, he felt free. 3 days later, Keisha was discharged from the hospital. Diego came to pick them up in his car. He had arranged everything. The apartment was ready. He had bought clothes for both Keisha and Amara, furniture, groceries, everything they needed. When they arrived at the apartment, Amara's eyes went wide. "Is this where we're going to live?" she asked in awe. "Yes, mi amor," Diego said. "This is your new home." The apartment had 3 bedrooms, a large sitting room, a modern kitchen, and a balcony with a beautiful view of the city. Amara ran from room to room, excited and amazed. Keisha stood in the sitting room, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Diego, this is too much." Diego walked over to her and wiped her tears. "It's not too much. It's what you deserve. What you both deserve." That evening, after Amara had gone to bed in her new room, Diego and Keisha sat together on the balcony. The city lights sparkled below them. The air was cool and peaceful. "I still can't believe this is happening," Keisha said softly. "It feels like a dream." "It's not a dream," Diego said, taking her hand. "It's real. We're real." Keisha looked at him. "What about your mother? She won't give up easily." "I know," Diego said, "but I meant what I said. I'm done letting her control my life. From now on, I make my own choices. And I choose you. I choose Amara. I choose us." Keisha rested her head on his shoulder. "I never stopped loving you, you know. Even when I ran away, even when I told myself to forget you, my heart never let you go." Diego wrapped his arm around her. "I never stopped looking for you. Every woman I met, I compared to you. Every relationship I tried, it felt empty because none of them were you." They sat in silence for a moment, just holding each other, making up for 8 years of lost time. Thank you for staying with this story to the very end. If you enjoyed it and want more heart-touching stories, just drop a comment saying "more stories." And please remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next upload. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.